In chess, have you ever found yourself pacing through lines highly tactical? You had a degree of uncertainty to no clue of the line's tactical basis. Or perhaps you found yourself floating through intricate lines where the strategic concepts were numerous. Well, hold on to your seats, as we're about to see where raw talent is the deciding factor in a game. I have a question for you. How true is it that you should not allow enemy knights to swarm around your king? Could we say that white is playing with fire? In this position, how can black, having the two bishop advantage, make a foray against white? In this next example, in spite of black's familiarity with mating patterns, chose to be creative by coming up with a mating pattern of his own. After king g1, queen f2 check, king h2, pawn to g1 under promotes to a knight, discover check, king h1 followed by knight to g3, checkmate.
I have a question. Out of memorization, pattern recognition, and creativity, is it true that creativity falls lower on the list?
Intuitive minds want to know. In this game, white constructs a V-like pawn formation on the king's side. White will play pawn to g3 followed by pawn from h2 to h4 via pawn to e3. Black's talent lies within his raw technique. Black will find a way to undermine white's kingside pawns, beginning with the move g7 to g5. By having a pawn on g4, the knight on e2 hasn't any good squares to go to. So therefore, after knight g3, black just captures the knight, weakening white's kingside structure even more. White's pawn on h5 is a weakness that must be exploited. The pawn on h5 is weak, and that is also a tactical target for black. So rook h6, doubling the rooks on the h file, and the pawn falls. Trade of rooks, king b1. The next tactical target for black is the pawn on e3. After white's kingside pawns are wiped out, then play transfers to the queen side. Check. It is clear that chess is a game of skill and strategy. How would a player who has a high level of chess skill fare in a game against another player who possesses a natural ability to see patterns and make intuitive moves, which can also be advantageous? Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here's a guest speaker who is a national master, goes by the name of Peachhead. He's going to give you a brief lesson.
Well, all right. Where do you want me to start? In the photo that you see in front of you, white, the player of the white pieces, is the skilled player, the book player. On the other hand, the player on the right is just talented. White's last move was playing the bishop to g5 to pin the knight, and this was based on a saying that goes, pinning games are winning games. But black, being the talented player, knows that knight takes e4 is the move to make, and we'll see why shortly. For starters, both the pawn on f2 and the bishop on g5 are hit. However, in white's mind, the queen is more valuable than a pawn. Although it is true, black knows that after bishop takes f2 check, the king steps to e2, there is no way to block the check from g4. Bishop g4 check is checkmate. Now, in this next miniature example, it is white who is the talented player and black who's the skilled player. Let me flip the board around since this illustration is from white's perspective. In this game, black makes the mistake of underestimating his opponent who's playing the white side. Underestimates his opponent's knowledge of the different variations. Here, white can recapture on d4 or just simply play the bishop to c4 and bishop c5, and then there is knight f6 and e5 followed by d5, bishop b5, and etc. The other possibility from this sequence of moves is knight takes d4, and this is followed by knight on g to e7, knight c3, knight takes d4, and after the trade, black gains tempo with knight c6 and queen to e3. Furthermore, white, being the intuitive player, knows how to stir things up. Here, white will in fact gambit two pawns. Bishop c4, knight f6, pawn to d4, e takes d4, and the move is to simply castle. And black can try taking the pawn on e4, but let's see what black actually does here. Black thinks that playing the pawn to h6 is something good, but after knight to h4, which is a stunning move to black, knight h4 followed by knight takes e4, now black simply accepts the second gambit pawn. Now queen h5 defends the knight. At the same time, this is double attacks f7, and after g6, bishop captures f7 is the knockout blow. Bishop takes f7 check, and if king captures on f7, then queen takes g6 check. There's only one move, king to e7, and the nail in the coffin is knight to f5, checkmate.
So, what is raw talent?
Raw talent is the ability or natural aptitude to excel at something without extensive training.
In this miniature game example, white is the skilled player. Very theoretical. On the other hand, black is just simply talented. Has an eye for key moments. And now on the subject of theory, in the diagram position in front of you, white has bargaining power. Again, theoretically speaking. But just understanding the theory is a tool and is not meant to replace board vision. Chess theory is only meant to enhance it. But as I stated before, positional value outweighs monetary value. And this is what black sees in this variation. Rook to d8 check, and white can capture the rook, but the move is to simply play bishop on a8, captures the pawn on g2 check. Black has two responses, king e2 or capture the bishop on g2. Black uses the stratagem or follows the philosophy of the principle of two weaknesses. Capturing the bishop will allow the pawn to promote to queen check. King to e2, pawn promotes to queen, and black wins. And the other possibility is to simply capture the bishop, which would allow a knight fork. For instance, king captures g2, pawn on f2 captures bishop on e1, under promotes to knight, forking the king and the queen as a result, and black wins there as well. And let's look at one more possibility for black in this position. You can simply play the bishop to b7, threatening bishop a6 check, which would allow the pawn to promote. White, seeing this, plays the queen to d3 to stop that. But rook e1 check, bishop captures on e1, and the continuation is the same. Bishop captures on g2 check, and king captures bishop on g2 would allow another knight fork. For instance, king takes g2, under promotes to knight, and a fork. Okay, that is all I have. Thank you. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for my next video.